Gotcha.
No, I don't have a pillow today. Yesterday I used a pillow.
What did I say about when we hit the button? Come on. Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome to LessonPix Live, where our CEO listens really carefully to instructions.
Uh-huh.
So, hi, everybody. So, I'm Bill Binko, co-founder of LessonPix. I have some great guests with me today. This is the second of four of our LessonPix Lives that we're actually doing in collaboration with ATIA. So, ATIA has a product showcase hour every day from 4 to 5, 4 to 4:45, something like that. And we decided that if we're going to do this, we're not going to talk about lesson picks for 45 minutes. We're going to invite our cool friends on and talk about all the things around lesson picks, all the things where we're involved, but somebody else is doing something kind of awesome. Yesterday we had Readtopia, Caroline Musselwhite and Jean Marie, whose last name I should know and I forget, from Don Johnson were on. And we talked about the integration we've done with Readtopia and literacy work and all the things that Caroline Musselwhite, who's awesome, has been working with us. Today, we've got Brian Whitmer from CoughDrop, Elisa Wern from Alachua County Schools up in Gainesville, Florida, a fantastic occupational therapist, and one of the people who very actively gets involved with what my green shirt is here, AT Makers, which is why I'm out of uniform today. Beth Poss, our speech pathologist at LessonPix, and Lori, our founder, are all here. And today's focused, I guess I should say, tomorrow we're going to have folks from the Maryland School from the Blind, and on Thursday we've got Jane Odom from Prenke Romick working with them as well. But today's focus was supposed to be about access, and to us, it made an awful lot of sense to bring on some folks that have done a ton of work on getting people access, the ability to not only have installed a piece of software, but to have it customized so that they could use it, to have it be flexible. CoughDrop is a great example of that. And AT Makers is a great example of that. And Alyssa is very much a part of that effort as well. She is one of the OTs that is have you ever had a kid, one that can only move their eyes, and they can only move it to the right side of their nose, and they might have had one switch point on their third finger, and she'll say, yeah, I did, I got CoughDrop to work. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about low incidence access and things along those lines. So I talked a lot. Brian, welcome. And for anybody joining, you're not going to be able to turn on your camera or unmute yourself. I should say that until we get to the Q&A period. So welcome, Brian. If you don't know who Brian Whitmer is, Brian is the founder and CEO, probably, of CoughDrop. And CoughDrop is an AAC app. It is open source, which doesn't necessarily mean it's always free. It means it can be free if you really want to put a lot of work into it. Or it's very, very affordable. It is something that anybody can get access to. It works on every device. And it is where all of the innovation is happening. Not all. It is where the vast majority of the innovation is happening in AAC right now. And we're going to talk about it today. So welcome.
Yep. Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Good. So we tell me a little bit, tell people a little bit about CoughDrop and how it came about and what it is beyond what I can say.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been a fun project. So I started CoughDrop. It was almost 6 years ago now, because my oldest child has Rett syndrome. So she's nonverbal. She is in a wheelchair. She has difficulty having much control over her hands. She uses eye gaze as her primary form of communication. But back then, she didn't have much of anything, and I didn't know much of anything about assistive technology. When we first started down this path, when we started to realize she was going to need technology supports for communication, the advice that we'd gotten from doctors and things beforehand was just kind of, well, make her comfortable, make her happy, don't expect a lot out of her. I mean, it was terrible advice. But that's kind of what we did for about a year until we learned better. And then once I started to sort of get this ball rolling, my background is in usability, building software that's approachable and not too hard for people to use. So as I started looking at the systems and solutions that were out there, I was like, these are okay, but man, there's a lot we could do better. And so I started talking to people, talking to SLPs and AT specialists and OTs and saying, what do you like about AAC and what do you hate and what do you wish was different and what do you think we could change? And that sort of became the beginnings of Coughdrop. It's an open source product, like Bill said. We have a version that people can subscribe to or can purchase so that it's available. But my roots are very much in that sort of open source mindset where we say, let's solve the problems that need to be solved. And there's probably a business that can work around this, but that's not our primary focus.
Yeah, I think people, I used to, so I used to give Brian a little bit of grief, occasionally, and that he's almost a open source zealot, right? I mean, he's way further. He drank the Kool-Aid way further than I did on open source. But it's, for those of you who don't know, open source just means the source code's available. If you want to take Coughdrop and make a small change to it that fits your needs, it's legal. It's available. You can go on, probably on GitHub now. I think it used to be on SourceForge, but it's available for you to access if you want to hire a programmer and change it the way you want it. And it's encouraged. It's encouraged for people to actually give input, help them build this thing to make it better. And it's why there's always more change and more innovation going on in the Coughdrop product and now kind of suite of products if you think about it. It's a model that is worth looking into, especially for AT. It's one of the things we do at AT Makers is that all of the projects we make are open source. You can download the 3D printed files. You can download the files to get the PCB boards printed. There's videos showing you how to make it all. And it introduces all these other brains into the thing that you're trying to solve, right? So I think it's wonderful. We've met Brian ages ago at Closing the Gap, I think. It's like 7 years ago at Closing the Gap. And it has come so far from where it was. Right? Coughdrop is, without a doubt, one of my favorite tools for using AAC. I can show it if you'd like, Brian, or I'm sure you can. Do you want to show your screen and show kind of what Coughdrop looks like? I can show it with LessonPix pictures if you'd like me to.
Yeah, how about you do that?
All right. So let me share my screen. So I have, let me share this one.
So one of the big things we did with Coughdrop, trying to be, sort of where things need to go. Traditionally, AAC was on a specific device. So it's like, oh, you get the iPad app or you install the Windows program. And that's cool if that's the modality that you're going to use and stay with. But if you need to switch, like say, for example, you start an iPad and eventually somebody needs to move to eye gaze, you're going to be on a Windows device for eye gaze most of the time right now. And so we wanted to build something that could work wherever you're at. So Coughdrop is actually cloud-based. It has apps in the app stores like you'd expect. You can install it on Windows, but you could also just pull it up in a web browser.
Right. So this is what I've got here. I've got Coughdrop running inside of Chrome. I brought up a page that we built using the LessonPix symbols. And if I hit speak mode, it goes into an AAC mode right in my browser. And that would work in any browser, right?
Yeah.
I mean, any modern browser. Yeah. So, and it's got a lot of features enabled right in the browser. Like it's got dwell tracking turned on right now. So, if I move my mouse, I'm going to say I can do it, right? So I can do I, and right. And so even if you can't click, if you can move a mouse however you want to do that, you have access to, a full-fledged AAC device. It's got nested folders. It's got a sidebar that'll pop up and give you quick access to keyboards and alerts and yeses and nos and things like that. And it's because it's open source, even things like you can export from Coughdrop and put it into other systems, right? So one of the things I'm sure people aren't going to be aware of is your work on open board format. Let me stop sharing this for a second and talk for a second. So tell us about open board format. I mean, a lot of people aren't going to have any clue what this is, but tell us anyway.
Right. Yeah. So it's probably not going to, change their lives once they find out about it, but it's an important work. I've started to move some of these things over to an umbrella called OpenAAC so that we can have it be a little bit separate from CoughDrop, the company. So other vendors can maybe be a little more involved than they've been willing to in the past. But open board format is basically a file format. You can imagine it like PDFs for AAC boards, right? So the idea is to get it to where anybody can take board set from one system, export it and throw it into another system, and it'll just work. So it's all documented. It's all publicly available. There's a bunch, you can take any board set inside a CoughDrop and make it into an OBF, an open board file, and then pass that along. We want to make this more of a democratized thing, right? So much of the time what happens is, I'm going to stay with this brand. I'm going to stay with this product because I have no idea how I would ever leave. Right. Because I'm stuck. And that's a terrible business model. It's not healthy for anybody. So we want to try to fix that.
Yeah. And actually, I'm actually probably one of the few people who's built a product around OBF, right? So if you guys, if you were paying attention to our LessonPix lives, we had one last summer where we made these little devices that could be made for $50 hardware, and they only had core words, right? They only had the ability to use core words, and we used it in Minor Achievements, which is Lori's therapy center here, and every kid got a device. And one of the best things about that was that the kid who had a PRC accent didn't feel like the only kid trying to use a device to speak. It was kind of an interesting, and it had all kinds of trouble with it too, but it was a great experience for that little girl to have everybody using a device that day, right? Anyway, it is a very interesting approach, and a lot of what Brian does is about trying to keep everything open, all the options open for all of the people, no matter what their access looks like. So when we talk about
access.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say, when we talk about access, that has been a big part of it, right? Is, you were showing the dwell support that's in the web browser, and there's scanning support that's built in too. Because we wanted to say, we don't care what modality you need to access your vocabulary. We don't care what size buttons you're going to have. You could have a big grid with just 4 buttons on it, really big buttons. You can set it up how you want.
Right.
And we just want to make sure we're supporting communicators in a way that they can get access where maybe they didn't before.
Right. So, I mean, here, I just brought up the settings are insane on what you can choose. The number of options you have is crazy. You can do column-based, row-based, axis-based, which I think is the left and right kind of stuff. You've got audible scanning as you go through. You can use pseudo switches. This is the dwell and eye tracking that you've got going on here. You've got built-in eye gaze that works with any of the installed products, correct?
Yeah, we're actually working on some JavaScript libraries that will just use the webcam too. It's not as accurate,
sure.
But if you were talking about 8 buttons, it would work.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I go back to that screen, one thing I want to show, and this will lead us, I think, into the discussion about AT makers. If I go back into this. Oh, this is the screen that was on that little device that I made, but it's not the one I want to show now. Let me get to the other one. Done. This is not the one I want. Boards. Sorry. There we go. I don't use this that much, but I do want to show something. I've got a device that AT Makers made. So AT Makers is a charity that I started 4 years ago. And if I turn off my virtual background for a second, I think I can show you guys this. So this is a device that I made over the past week or 2 weeks. And total cost on this is about $40. There's no soldering. So this is a little motion tracking device, right? It's got a 4-pin plug that goes into this little $6 microcontroller. And this is a head mouse, right? This absolutely works as a head mouse. Here, I'll show it working with CoughDrop. So if I plug this in, it's just a little bit of Python code, right? Let's see if I can get this looking sane. Yeah, I'll share my screen for a second.
Hey, Bill, can you unmute Elisa, please?
Oh, yeah. I didn't know she was muted. Hold on a
Yeah, I
sec.
did the same thing. I didn't know I forgot I couldn't unmute myself.
Oh, after you muted yourself, you couldn't mute yourself. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right, see if that fixes you. Yes, you're good now? All right, good. Sorry, Alyssa.
No, it's okay. When you get to a stopping point, I want to share something.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So there you go. All right. So all I want to show here is like I'm just moving my head, right? I got no hands here. And this thing's able to move around and I can say, I can do it. So I said it before, so I can go up, and go over and get can, right? And this is expensive if you want to go do this. I can. Now I want to do it. Now that I started, I can do it, right? I can do it, right? I can do it. I can go up to the top and I can have it read that.
No, I can do it.
Oh, the no was already up there.
No, I can do it.
So this is something where we've gotten to the point where $40 and a little bit of software coding. There's no hardware. I plugged these things together. I didn't have to pull out a soldering iron or make anything. And we can take your software, so how much is CoughDrop a month? I'm lazy and I'm not going to build my own. I'm going to use yours. What's it cost?
Yeah. So we do 2 months for free, and then it's $6 a month, or you can pay $200 up front, either way.
And that's good forever.
Yeah.
The $200 is forever. Right. So I can take that for $6 a month and $40 in hardware. I can have a head tracking AAC device, which is unheard of, right? Those prices are insane. That sound like crazy.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Right.
You look at anything where you're buying it, insurance funded or from a manufacturer, you're talking minimum $500, right? And
Yes.
it goes way up from there very quickly.
Yeah, just for the head tracker, right?
Yeah.
And then in some cases, the access device that you're buying only works with one piece of AAC software, and in some cases, you have to buy the Mac that it works on, right? I mean, sometimes this gets absolutely bonkers, and it shouldn't be. This shouldn't be where we are anymore. So democratizing AAC and access is key, but the physical access is too, right? So Alyssa, sorry that I muted you.
That's okay. I didn't take it personally. So when it comes to looking at access from our level at the school system, we're really at this prime time where, what we would have to pay thousands of dollars for or write ridiculous reports to get, privately funded, we can now do with a device that we provide to lots of kids, an iPad or wherever, and a technology made device. And I think when it comes to specifically what I love about CoughDrop is that we have students that may need multiple access methods throughout a day. And I have a couple of students that CoughDrop is one of the few that also runs on Kindle. So I have parents who said, okay, well, I'll get a Kindle at home, and then we provide other devices. So as their day goes on, sometimes they're a direct selector and they could use a Kindle or an iPad. And sometimes they need something that's a little more advanced, whether it's Switch or eye gaze. And there aren't that many products, maybe one, that could provide that range without messing up the page set that's available.
Even just the ability to work on multiple devices and have synchronized page sets, that's huge, right? I mean,
and it saved us in this period since March, because I can go in, make changes to pages, let the family know, hey, I've added that or I've changed that, just make sure it syncs next time you're in. And I didn't have to try to get to a house or have them download and upload something. So that is huge on that end. I have a client who's overseas. I wouldn't be able to get to them and provide that in-person support, but I can do that because I can just log into it and support them on the web.
Yeah. So Brian, this leads us into a thing that you just released and has nothing to do with LessonPix. Again, I like talking about my friend's stuff, but you just released remote modeling, right? I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, we did. So we did that's what we call it. It's a real-time feature, so that when you have somebody who's doing remote therapy, they can actually connect to the communicator's device. So then they can see what buttons they're hitting. They can actually model for them, so they can pull up highlights basically for them on their device. So if I'm a therapist, I can look and I can see what the communicator is doing at real time. Let's say we're doing, we're using Zoom or whatever, but then I also have the ability to see what's going on their device. And then I can hit and I can say, all right, highlight this button for them, because this is what we're working on, right? So I want to draw attention to this button that, we're practicing modeling. And so it's sort of a two-way support to be able to do more than just watch a video and hope that, things go well, which is kind of where we've been since COVID hit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, it's huge. And it's something that some of this stuff has to bleed into the other devices, like setting up a page remotely. The idea that I have to go get a device in order to change a page, that can't stay that way in the rest of the industry, right? It hasn't been that hasn't been true for you in a long time, but other folks have to follow this path, right?
Or be able to export it and upload it, and somebody has to download it and change it and then upload it again. And there's a lot of different ways you can get lost in that.
Yeah. And with CoughDrop, you edit it and you
started, it was.
Go ahead.
Sorry. When we first started, the big news that everybody had was they're like, oh, you can export to Dropbox. And we're like, yeah, that's something. But that's not the same as what we're talking about, right? And we've sort of, honestly, when I first started building CoughDrop, my mentality was, this is going to be a proof of concept, and everybody's going to be like, oh, we need to do those things, and they'll just implement it because they're such good ideas. And we just haven't seen the speed of adoption that I was hoping for. So we ended up building a product and doing it that way. But I think they'll catch up eventually. I want them to. We haven't, it's not like this is all patented or anything. We said, everybody copy us, for goodness sake. These are good ideas.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. And I think it's amazing. Lori's smirking down there because we have a regular running gag, because it's like, certainly somebody else will do this one, right? Like, it's like
No.
very often the answer is no. If anybody's going to start a nonprofit in Tarpon Springs for special needs kids, Lori's got to do that. Like, I think it is great that there is somebody like you doing this just because nobody else is, right? And this is not gonna make you rich, Brian. I don't know if you knew this, but
wait, what?
It better not be why you're doing it. So I love the fact that it's not.
No.
Right? But all right, let's talk a little bit about some other stuff. Let's talk about, let's lead into this low tech first with some things that are LessonPix. So one of the things that we added over the past couple of years is a true low tech device for folks with no access. We made eye gaze boards, E-Tran boards, they used to be called. We had a request for them. We had somebody willing to test them with us. And Beth, you actually made a video that was posted out last week on Accessible Access Day, correct?
Yep.
So do you have any with you? Can we show them?
I've got, so hopefully you got, I turned off my virtual background.
Yep,
it makes it a lot easier.
Let me spotlight
So
you.
this is an eye gaze board that's made in LessonPix. And I would say the coolest thing about the LessonPix eye gaze boards is that when it prints out, it gives you 2 pages, right? And so when you put those 2 pages together, or if you were to print them on, back to front, it provides so that what I'm looking at as a communication partner, as I hold it up, is a mirror image of what the AAC user on the other side is. So like, I know that if I'm pointing right here, like I'm pointing to the exact same image that my finger that I can see on the other side. So it really helps as a communication partner to be able to do that. I mean, that piece as an effective communication partner is just so critical. And so this is one that's on the sharing center that happens to be, it's our 36 location one. And somebody created it with all of the letters of the alphabet, plus some question words and a yes, no. And so if you've got somebody who needs to spell a message, they'd be able to do that. And I'd be able to see, looking through here, I'd be able to see what they were looking at and confirm it, and then be able to have them spell out that message. With the it's color. This is like a color. It's a two-step process, right? So like if they wanted to start their word with the letter B, they would first look at this top.
Up a little so we can see your eyes. Up, up.
Top right corner.
There
Sorry,
you go.
they look at this top right corner here, or left, whatever it is from your advantage. And then they would look, because let's say the letter B is then in like that purple, then they would go down and look at the one that's outlined in purple. It's a little hard to see the colors in with the zoom right now, but it's a two-step process where they're looking at the location and then they're looking at the color that the individual icon inside that location is, and then you confirm it. So it's just a super easy, important low-tech backup, and we've got a whole bunch of them in there. I don't have the center cut out in this one, but this is like a medical one, so just really super easy.
And that's a one step, right?
Yeah, this is just a simple, just look at those areas for simple medical component, like if somebody is, as too many are right now, unexpectedly in the hospital and is not able to, have access, to be able to move or to speak easily, to be able to write. So I find most often that I have used in my own personal experience, eye gaze boards as a backup communication system for individuals who've got a high-tech, robust system. And that backup might be because the system isn't available, but it might also be because of fatigue. Using these high-tech systems with eye gaze or switch access is extraordinarily fatiguing for many individuals. And so having that low-tech eye gaze. So we had a student that I worked with a number of years ago, and she was a very accomplished switch user, but when she would go home, she was exhausted, and her mom and her could use an eye gaze with an alphabet like that. And her mom, there was such good communication between them that she could start spelling a word and mom would be able to finish it. And it was very quick and efficient for them.
Yeah, I think it is, it's something that I'm glad we were able to make. It's a very small population that needs it every day, but I got to tell you, shouldn't every hospital have these? Like, shouldn't every single hospital have the ability for somebody who suddenly got intubated be able to do basic communication? So to me, it was really easy when somebody asked us to do it, and I said, well, yeah, of course. So we have the low-tech ones, we have the two-step ones, which are kind of cool, but very hard. And it led to a project that Brian and I did. So if you guys don't mind us kind of rolling into this. So as COVID started about last March, there was an article in out of Boston, I think it was in the New York Times, by an ICU doctor who basically talked about people dying alone and talked about people not being able to communicate with their loved ones while they were intubated and in an isolation ward. And a lot of us here, maybe all of us here, but I mean, I know Lori and I and Brian have been there, right? We've been there when somebody we love is intubated or isolated, or we've been there where we have to be able to communicate and it's very difficult. And so I thought about this, and I thought about those eye gaze boards, and I reached out to Brian and I said, this sucks. We can't let this stay this way. What do you think about using modern technology and doing essentially the same thing? Let's do a eye gaze board that can be used remote with a camera and a tablet. And we did, right? I mean, you did. I started it. I gave you the requirements and I pushed.
We sat
and then
down
Brian
and
wrote all the
out
code and he made it work.
And I said, I'll be back in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
And shockingly, a few days later, a thing called COVID Speak came into being. Do you have the ability to show them this, Brian?
I can't share my screen. It's disabled.
Well, I can fix that. Hold on, I can fix that one.
No way, all our privilege.
Hold on. All right, how about now?
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So we threw together, and then developed it since then, obviously, but COVID Speak. The idea here was to be able to create the corollary to these paper-based boards. Everybody's doing everything virtually. we had individuals that here, I'll show you this little mirror room that I've set up so that I can just talk to myself basically. But we have, people who are in the hospital, suddenly cut off from their family who would normally be sitting next to them, supporting them. And without that emotional support, it's harder to recover. We all know that. And what you had was you had nurses that were like, they had like selfie sticks and they're holding this iPhone across the room, trying to keep a little bit of distance so that people could at least see their families. We said we can do one better. So COVID Speak was what we put together, and it's web-based, and it's essentially the same thing as what Beth was showing off. You have this choice board, so I can take my feed. If I'm on a video call with somebody else, I can position their eyes based on wherever the camera's at to where it needs to be, and then they would be able to look at specific options, just like we were talking about. If they don't have the ability to touch, if they do, they could touch it themselves, right, and be able to activate them. But if they don't, they can look at them. And then I can hit them for it. It'll be highlighted on both sides. And then we can say, oh yeah, that's what I meant to say. So we put a bunch of templates together for different things so that, just like we were talking about, we could have medical boards and basic communication, just something to make it easier to be able to have that same kind of just rudimentary communication, if that's all we've got.
And interestingly, you still have like, the able communicator, right? The remote communicator, the person who's not ventilated, still has audio. They can talk and they have a video that they can, the loved one can see. But if the person who's on the ventilator can't talk, can't move a mouse, can't do anything like that, they still have an option with the eye gaze. And they can share their, like the loved ones can share their screens, they can share videos. You've added all kinds of nutty things here. That are
you
great,
can do emoji reactions, for your emotional support.
And all of this is using a web technology that is fairly standard right now, right? This is WebRTC, right?
Yeah, so it's got some quirks on a couple of browsers we had to sort of work through, but it should run on whatever.
Yeah, and so so like you said, it'll run on whatever. You're on a Mac, I run on a PC. But it runs on an iPad, it runs on a Chromebook, it runs on any modern device. And we made this free for anybody in a COVID situation, right?
Yeah.
And so at this point, if you're not in a COVID situation, there's you can pay to use it in a normal setting. But if you're a hospital, this is available, right? And it's
what we ended up having was a lot of schools said, oh my gosh, like I could use this for teletherapy, right? Because this is way better than just the Zoom call.
Right.
My kids that have been using AAC, they don't engage on a Zoom call because there's nothing they can do except stare at me. And so yeah, we said, all right, well, going forward, obviously something has to pay for the server costs and things. So there's the subscription option. But the COVID situation, we didn't want to, we wanted people to communicate, to have that baseline for sure.
Yeah. And if somebody is if somebody's at Boston Children's or some other Shepherd Center or someplace that is needing this because you're a COVID center, still, it's still free. Call us. We'll set you up a room. But if you're going to be using it for other purposes, which there are some, the subscription is still sane, right? What are you asking for a month of COVID Speak?
Yeah, so it's $8 a month, but we didn't want to, hose everybody, and it's not. So basically, the way it works is every month you use more than 30 minutes of call time, you pay $8. So if you sign up and then use it for a month and don't use it anymore, it's not like, oh gosh, I got to cancel that subscription because they're charging me over and over again. Or a school can sign up and then just leave it over the summer, and they don't have to unsubscribe and then resubscribe.
That makes sense. Yeah, it all makes sense.
And families, a lot of times families can just stay under that 30 minutes anyway. So if they're using it for individual purposes, that's great.
Yeah. So this was a huge it's a huge piece of work. I don't know if you want to unshare your screen.
Yeah.
It was just so people get it. I had the idea, I had the paper one, I told Brian about it. And then other than some testing, I didn't do anything else. Fair enough?
Yeah, I mean, yep.
Yeah,
we tested it on as many devices as we could think of, right, and found some bugs. But
I really hope, and I think this is the case. I really hope that eventually that feature might migrate back into CoughDrop, right?
Yeah, so you mentioned the remote modeling before, and that's a very easy place for it, right?
Right.
I haven't gotten to it. I wanted to get to it already, but in the next couple months, yeah, we should start to see it show up. So
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that we can do something like this, use it for learn the lessons during this critical time, and then take the good stuff from it and put it back into the products, like our PowerPoint stuff and things like that.
and again, it's open source, so others could do the exact same thing. If there's another
Absolutely.
ACU that wanted to do this, I mean, go for it. It's all right there.
So I'm actually kind of happy about that. I wish it had been used more. I think I had a harder time getting the word out about that than I expected, but it's still there. And if people still need it, it's not going anywhere, right?
For sure.
So I think a couple other things I want to talk about, and then I suppose we'll probably save some time for questions in about 5 minutes, Lori, okay? I'm sure we have stacked up questions, right? Tons of them. Somebody thinks I sound like Mike Rowe, right? Again.
Again.
Yes.
Sorry.
It was just one person.
Well, actually, it was one person's husband thought I sounded like Mike Rowe.
They'll pay you later.
Yeah. So let's talk, Elisa, about AT Makers for a couple minutes and about what we're up to at the moment. So it has grown. Obviously, the AT. So let's start with what on earth we're going to talk about. So AT Makers is a charity that LessonPix funds and that I founded. It's been around for 4 or 5 years. It's a 501c3 nonprofit charity. And its goal is to introduce makers. So robotics teams, maker spaces, technology companies, people who make geeky stuff like these headsets for a living or for fun. Let's get them engaged with assistive technology. Let's let them realize that there's a need for their skills. Let's work within the frameworks that they already have, like robotics teams and things like that. Let's get them actively recognizing that AT exists. And I think we've done a decent job. I think over the last 4 years, it has grown to the point where we've got thousands of people on the Facebook group. We've got, dozens of robotics teams. We've got lots of people who are involved. It probably could be better organized. It's not, that's not my strength necessarily. And we have things that are so popular that they're hard to support at this point. But we still do a lot of the stuff with the teens, and you've done a lot of that, right? So Alyssa's in Gainesville, Florida, home of University of Florida, go Gators, where I went, and et cetera. You are the #1 recipient of the Gainesville team, I think. Is that a safe assumption?
It's probably a safe assumption. And I think it goes hand in hand. It's been really great to develop the relationship such that, I have teachers that now will contact the robotics team directly. They don't even come through me and be like, hey, I got a new student in my classroom who I really think could do the thing that you came before for another student. And so that helps. And it's great for the students on the robotics end to see the applications for what they're learning in a human factor.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what they're learning goes towards robotics, which is fantastic, and it's great science and STEM education. But I think adding that human factor has been really, really great on every level.
So we have a couple things up in Gainesville that we do regularly. We have an Adaptathon every year. This year, a lot of that was done virtually or without our my physical presence up there, for better and for worse, right? But they still did it. They did it without us, because even though they couldn't meet in person, even though we couldn't get into a big gymnasium and have 150 kids making 200 toys, they all really wanted to do this. So they adapt toys to make them Switch enabled. Everything from like stuffed animals to dinosaurs to Zoom tubes and all the stuff that we find fun. And you were there for a lot of that. You received a lot of those Switches, like these You have switches that look like this, I'm pretty sure. Yes.
Lots of teardrop switches. And what's nice about what that enables us to do is we may be working on switch access in the school setting, and it enables us to give a means for that parent to be practicing and just playing with their kiddo at home in a different context, and work on those switch skills that eventually enable a communication access as well. So we were able to also, get some toys as well out to families before and after Christmas, some of them.
Probably the other AT Maker thing that people think about when they think about you would be these, right? Whoops. Yes. So
our friend, the IntelliKeys.
Oh, I got to undo my virtual screen. So for those of you who don't know,
which tried to die and we wouldn't let it.
We wouldn't let it die. Actually, Elisa would not let the IntelliKeys die. Now, this one is not standard.
No, based on the current requests still flooding in for adapters, it's for good reason we did not allow it to die. And that is something that our FRC team, our local robotics team, handles 99.9% of the managing in terms of putting it together and mailing it out.
Yeah, isn't that great? So right now, if you have one of these devices, and somebody's pointing out rubber chickens, and I didn't get one, so whatever.
Yeah, it's a patent access to education thing.
Gotcha. All right, I might need one, Beth. So
I'll send you one.
Thank you. If you have a IntelliKeys and you want to use it as a keyboard, we have tools now. We have a little adapter that we make that plugs between the standard keyboard and your computer, and it translates the weird non-standard IntelliKeys USB port into a normal USB keyboard. What that means is you can plug it into anything. You can plug it into a Mac, a PC, a Chromebook, you can use an adapter, an iPad, and just plug it in, and it just works as a keyboard. And that's so for people who are they have cerebral palsy primarily, it really is a CP tool at this point, right?
Yeah, anybody or post-stroke that have an intentional tremor, anybody who has a vision impairment that needs the size and the color of contrast for those. There is a niche in our physical access world that nothing else but the IntelliKeys is able to really meet that need. And it's why we have internationally gotten requests for this adapter. Yeah. Australia, Italy. And so through the support of AT Makers, we're able to get folks who are resistant or have not yet updated their operating system for fear of losing their only access method to be able to write and type, access to go to the latest version of Mac and do everything else they need to do, and yet still have access to the IntelliKeys.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it's great that you push so hard. So there's a lot of people who had to do this. Elisa kept pushing relentlessly
in a friendly way
ish, and AbleNet, who had bought it, was willing to open up the drivers, make them open source. So Adam Wing there, we can thank him for that. Yeah. We got some people to upgrade that to work with Windows 10. So you can download those drivers and it'll work in Windows 10, and get them signed, which was really the big issue. Yeah. And then
by luck,
a community of true hardcore hardware geeks, some of whom weren't even part of our community, went into that code, figured out the protocol that it was using, and gave me the software I needed and the knowledge I needed to make the little dongle that does the translation. And so now if you go to atmakers.org, which you should all do, so if you go to atmakers.org and you click on IntelliKeys Adapter Program, you can fill out the form and say what you need and why you need it. There's a video, you can learn all about this, and I won't make you listen to me in my micro voice, but it'll show you all about what you need to do and how to sign up and stuff.
If you only need it to run on Windows 10, the first drop down on that website is right the drivers for Windows 10 itself.
Right.
So you don't have to apply for an adapter if what you want to do is have that IntelliKeys run on Windows 10. And there's an infographic there that tells you about it, how to do that. if you want to run it on anything else, Chrome OS, Mac OS, shoot through the adapter program. Or if you need to do it on more than one, we got to have an adapter running for you.
Yeah. Yep. So this is, and there is no way for us to get, just so everybody, before you ask, there is no way to get the current drivers to work on any of the current Mac OS X's. It's just never going to happen. The entire language system that they are written in was removed from Mac. So it's gone. We can't do this anymore. But I love the fact that you can do it with the dongle. And the dongle is a little piece of hardware that goes between them. And I love the fact that we did this. I also love that Riptide is, so Riptide is the Roaring Riptide robotics team from PK Young University High School in Gainesville. And they've taken on all of it. They make the adapters, they take in the requests directly, they have rules on who they say no to and who they refer.
Well, I do that part of it, but then they do the manufacturer, the test, they do some technical troubleshooting with them if it's gets there and they have problems.
Yeah. All I do at this point is pay the shipping costs.
Yep.
That's it.
And that's huge when
Yeah. But
when you're
it is
talking
great.
Australia. But it's been tremendously great to partner with the robotics kids, and again, they've kind of taken the lead on making it continue to be available. And they just posted yesterday they're working on updating key guards for IntelliKeys.
Yep.
3D printing those, and that was out of a user's request saying, "Hey, I can't find my key guard, the little plastic thing that goes over it." And I think that has been tremendous, just to kind of see where they've taken it and run with it.
This thing.
Yep, the little plastic guard that makes it easier for someone to isolate their finger and pick a specific key.
The hard thing about key guards is that they're big enough that you can't 3D print them. You've got to use Lexan and cut them out of plastic or do something else. So anyway, I'm really proud of what we've done on this, and there's a lot more. So if you sign up at atmakers.org, it will also direct you to join the Facebook group, which you really have to do, because that's where all the new stuff, all the new requests come in there, and it's great to see what people are doing and what people are asking for and everything else. So I am happy with it. Let's get to some Q&A if we have any. Lori and Beth, let's start with Beth, have you been paying attention to the chat window?
I have, and we've got a few folks here, Christine and Laura, and I think Diane may or may not still be here. Yeah, she is. Okay. So I don't know if they have, if you want to give them the ability to unmute, if they have any particular questions. There was some conversation going back and forth about the IntelliKeys and everything.
Sure. So I will let everybody unmute if you'd like to. I think I've done that for everybody. Christina, if you don't, you can also type your questions in the chat and we'll read them.
Gift setup. I'm not sure what she means by that. Do you have Amazon?
So there's an Amazon thing that it's like a portal that Amazon has that as you use Amazon, they donate to organizations.
Yeah, that's Amazon Smile, and we absolutely are on it. Please set us up as your Amazon Smile. We would love the money.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
I saw Joe Benamati commented on the Facebook that knowing about your work with COVID Speak inspired him to train his teachers to use a virtual background as a classroom eye gaze in Zoom.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a really good. That's a really good idea. If you're not using it, you stick it behind you, right? That's great. Kind of like Lori's right there.
Exactly. Only it's the eye gaze board. So yeah, using that green screen to your advantage.
Yeah. Yep.
You thought about that because you could have images on either side, and then when the user, that's
doing jazz hands.
Yeah. It's like Legends of the Hidden Temple, that old Nickelodeon show, right?
Now we're eating ourselves, Brian.
I'm sorry, Brian. What?
Sorry, I just dated myself.
Okay. All right.
I do have one with ones on both sides, but
there you go.
Like eye gaze board is a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
To have things that you can point to all around you.
Lori, we have any other questions from the Facebook?
No. Joe's comment was a pretty big one. I think Laura actually said it very well in that she's just listening intently, because it was so interesting, the number of things you've covered in this session. And I love it when AT makers and LessonPix world come together here.
It's kind of rare, right? Like,
yeah, because it was just neat to start off talking about CoughDrop, where our symbols are and how powerful that is for AAC through eye gaze.
oh,
through
you know what we didn't show?
What?
We didn't show how, we have to. We didn't show how to enable LessonPix in CoughDrop. We have to. Hold on.
Oh,
Let me like we should all be officially fired for this, okay? I'm sorry. One sec. Let me bring up so geez.
I can't be fired from a volunteer position, so I'm good.
That's yeah, you can.
You can't fire me either.
Sure you can. I can fire all of you. You watch. Oh my goodness. So all right. So if you're in CoughDrop, and Brian, tell me if I'm doing this wrong, but I think I know what I'm doing. If you're in CoughDrop and so what we're talking about is you're in a board and you want to change this picture here. And so you go in, you say edit board. You say, I want to change this button's picture. So by default, you get open symbols, Flickr, public domain, and these others. Symbol sticks is not usually there. And these two you have to pay for, correct?
Right.
Right. Okay. So if you are a LessonPix member, you can get LessonPix symbols. And if you search and you look for the word give, it will show you LessonPix give symbols. Okay. There is no additional charge for this if you are a LessonPix user. The way that but they won't show up because it doesn't know you're a LessonPix user. So what you've got to do is you got to go in here, hit cancel, open this up, go to preferences, go to profile, and right down here on the bottom, there's a button that says connect to LessonPix. And if you do that and you enter your username and password, you'll have access to LessonPix inside of CoughDrop. And Brian and I had an agreement early on that if your LessonPix account goes, idle, you stop paying us, it's okay. The boards that you made with it will still work because we don't want to screw the kids you're supporting because you chose to use a different, or because you retired, right? You retired and now all their boards are going to stop working. So right. It's just when you're doing the search and adding images, you have to have an active account, correct?
Correct.
And we added today, we fixed the bug so that if you create high contrast symbols or any other customized symbols, they will now show up in your search. So for those of you who might have thought that was a bug.
And that's huge between the high contrast availability. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but in that drop down, one of the options is Giphy ASL symbols. So between those are two places and supports that we haven't necessarily had in an AAC support before.
Gotcha. While we're talking about that, I do have one thing to show that Lori will appreciate. So Lori has just spent an ungodly amount of time. Let me log back in. An ungodly amount of time.
It's a never ending.
A metric ton of ASL pictures.
Back in the day. I thought we'd show that tomorrow too, because
we'll have our for tomorrow.
Why would low vision be an ASL issue?
Because it's vision and hearing tomorrow.
Oh, is it vision and hearing?
Yes.
All right. Well, we won't. Then this isn't up yet. I'm sorry. I was wrong. There aren't dozens and hundreds of new ASL pictures. We'll talk about them tomorrow. I just wanted to make sure Alyssa knew about them.
Yes. Thank you for filling me in.
All right. I think we're good, and we're certainly running out of time. Anything I didn't cover that anybody really wants to talk about? Brian, is there anything happening in CoughDrop that you want them to come see you? I know. What are the dates of AAC in the cloud?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. We should definitely mention that. We do a summer conference every year. It's a free virtual conference. And this year it'll be, June 22nd and 23rd, or the 21st and 22nd. I can't remember. It's on the AAC in the cloud Facebook page. But we get lots of presentations. We are, from around the industry, just lots of experts. We're going to do a big push to see if we can get some more AA users themselves presenting this year. So it should be a really good conference. 5th year. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. One
And
great
it's awesome because it's free.
it's free, and it's free. It's free. It's free, and it's in hours you can get to, and it's available online, and it always has been. It's not new because of COVID. We're doing virtual. It's meant to be virtual. It
We
works
were
great.
virtual long before it was cool.
That's right.
Yeah. Everybody's
And-
asking. They're like, how do you do this virtual conference thing? We're like, okay, well.
Yeah, maybe we should talk to people who've done it before.
Yeah.
We may, AT Makers and Brian may be adding something to AAC in the cloud this year. I'd love to say we are, but we haven't actually had time to chat about it. But I would like to do something similar along the same vein as the Maker Day that we were missing last weekend.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. We're gonna do it.
Yeah, we'll do a Maker Day. We'll have maybe even have things you can get, like give you a list of things you can buy and play along with us, or have the kits put together and sell them to you as a fundraiser, right? And then it'll have all of Judy Schoonover's PVC pipes, and she can do them remotely with you. And let's do that. People want to do hands-on stuff and not just listen to people talk in a Zoom room, right?
For sure.
So we're going to try and do that with AAC in the cloud this year.
Oh, no, you said it. We're doing it.
I know, right? I heard it too, Brian.
All right. Well, Brian already said yes to me. It's
That's
more a matter of
idea.
I was hoping you had already like somewhat had a conversation with Brian before you just,
Surprise.
I would never do that, Alyssa. I would never put somebody on the spot and not give them a warning, would I?
Never.
All right. All right, everybody. It's been great seeing you all. I wish we were in Orlando. I wish we were in the same city.
I know.
We're not. We're everywhere.
Snow. It's been snowing here for 3 days.
Yeah. How much did you get?
Not that much, considering it's been snowing on and off for 3 days, maybe like 6 inches, but
Oh, that's not bad.
I'd rather be in Orlando.
6 inches more than we have here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
You can
cold
have
here today. We got to like 57.
We had a freeze warning here in Florida.
Tragic.
Oh,
Tragic.
Wow. Yeah.
What's it like in Utah, Brian?
we are dry at the moment. It's like been this roller coaster. We had like a crazy big snow and it was freezing cold. And then we were excited because we were up in the low 50s, so we kind of been back and forth, but right now we're dry.
Yeah. So, and Beth Eckstein on the chat says, it's cold and snowy in Asheville. We know, we just left there. We have a cabin in Maggie Valley and decided
Gosh.
we're turning into snowbirds. So
Well,
we're going
next
home when
time,
it's cold there.
next time we need to get you to do something with our schools so you're so close.
So yeah, are you in
yeah.
what's it called? Buncombe
Buncombe
County?
County.
What is it called again?
Buncombe County.
Buncombe County. Yeah. So if you're not using LessonPix, tell us, we can come do a training.
We are.
They are. We've done some stuff for them. Yeah,
Well, we can do it in person and write off the trip next time.
that's right.
Yeah, totally.
Not that, don't tell the IRS I said that, but
Asheville's
All right.
stunning.
yeah,
gorgeous
Asheville's
there.
gorgeous.
But it is cold. We're last year we had a summer winter. This year we're having a winter.
Yeah, the bears stopped showing up, so that's a good sign, right? So, all right, I think we're done. Everybody, thanks for
Thanks.
joining us, and we're gonna shut down the live stream to Facebook and YouTube, and it'll still be available there if you want to watch it later if you missed the beginning. And then I will see you all again tomorrow when we're. So, Beth, who is joining us from Maryland School?
So Karen Nord and Jen Keenan and Brittany Grieri. I hope I said her last name correctly.
And these are all teachers of the blind.
Teachers of the So Brittany is a teacher of the visually impaired, and Jen is a special educator who is on their AT team, and Karen is an OT who is on their AT team, and they have done amazing stuff with us lately, helping us get our high contrast images up and running off the ground. So
yeah, we're gonna talk about that tomorrow. All right, everybody, thanks a lot.